There was a time when walking into Debenhams felt like stepping into something bigger than shopping. The scent of new clothes, the hum of conversations, the sparkle of Christmas lights on the upper floor. For decades it wasn't just a store, it was a ritual. A place where memories were made, and where Britain's identity lived. But then, it was gone. Almost overnight, the familiar logo vanished from the high street. And I couldn't help but ask myself, what really happened to Debenhams? The world was changing faster than anyone expected. Amazon, ASOS, and fast fashion weren't just trends, they were revolutions. People stopped queuing on Saturdays. They started scrolling instead. And yet, Debenhams barely moved. When I looked through the archives, the warning signs were everywhere. Competitors like John Lewis and Marks & Spencer were already pivoting, investing heavily in digital. Debenhams? They were still pouring millions into refurbishing stores that people were no longer visiting. It wasn't that they didn't know the storm was coming, it's that they didn't believe it would hit them. In 2013, Debenhams' online revenue was less than a third of its competitors. Their website was slow, their listings outdated, and delivery painfully expensive. Customers were moving online, but Debenhams' management was still celebrating in-store foot traffic, a metric that was already dying. The irony was painful. This was a brand that had built trust for over 2 centuries, but it couldn't trust itself enough to evolve. And the mistakes didn't stop there. To boost short-term profits, they began cutting staff, closing departments, and reducing in-store services, the very things that made Debenhams special. Customer experience declined. Reviews worsened. And while online rivals grew sleeker, faster, and more personal, Debenhams' site looked like a digital relic. Then came the blows from all sides. The rise of Primark, the global reach of Zara and H&M, and the influencer-driven boom of brands that lived entirely on Instagram. Debenhams was too slow, too corporate, too tired. "We knew the company wasn't keeping up," one former marketing staff member told me. "We'd pitch new digital campaigns and management would say, 'That's not how we do things here.'" That line stuck with me. That's not how we do things here. It wasn't just a phrase, it was a mindset. And it's the same mindset that has led to the demise of many once great British brands. By 2018, Debenhams' debts had ballooned to over £700 million. They were closing stores, losing market share, and quietly falling apart. But what shocked me most wasn't the numbers, it was how silent the collapse was. No big headlines. No breaking news. Just quiet closures, whispered redundancies, and loyal employees who didn't realize they were working for a ghost. The digital storm had arrived, and Debenhams was standing in the rain without an umbrella. Then came March 2020. The world stopped. Doors closed. Streets emptied. And suddenly every store, big or small, faced the same question. Could they survive without customers? For Debenhams, the answer was already written. I remember the first lockdown announcement. Like millions, I thought it would last a few weeks. But inside Debenhams headquarters, panic was setting in. They didn't have the cash flow, the digital infrastructure, or the trust of their lenders anymore. Within weeks, thousands of staff were furloughed. The website, once neglected, suddenly became their lifeline, but it couldn't carry the weight. Orders delayed. Deliveries failed. Customers frustrated. And behind the scenes, suppliers were demanding payments the company could no longer make. April 2020, Debenhams enters administration for the second time in a year. It wasn't just a headline, it was a death notice disguised as business news. Debenhams had filed for administration before, but this time there was no coming back. A former store manager in Birmingham told me, "We thought we'd reopen. We cleaned, we organized, we waited. But when the doors reopened months later, the customers didn't come back." The pandemic didn't kill Debenhams, it exposed the truth. Years of debt, neglect, and poor leadership had hollowed the company from the inside. COVID-19 was just the final push. By December 2020, administrators announced that all 124 remaining stores would close. Over 12,000 staff, gone. Centuries of history wiped out. And Britain's high street, forever changed. I watched a video online, an elderly woman standing outside the Oxford Street store, holding her shopping bag. She said, "I've been coming here since I was a girl. It feels like losing a friend." That line stayed with me. Because Debenhams wasn't just a retail loss, it was an emotional one. For generations it had been part of Britain's rhythm. Saturday afternoons, Christmas lights, window displays, wedding lists. And in a matter of months it was gone. But even as the final lights went out, something strange was happening behind the scenes. Something that hinted Debenhams' story wasn't completely over. Because while the stores were closing, someone else was quietly preparing to buy the name. When the last Debenhams stores closed their doors in 2021, many believed that was the end. But as it turns out, it wasn't. At least, not quite. Even in death, the Debenhams name still had value. And someone, or rather, some company, was about to cash in on it. That's right. The online fast fashion empire Boohoo swooped in and bought Debenhams. Not the stores, not the staff, not the legacy, just the brand name and online operations. For £55 million, they owned centuries of history. But what they bought was only the ghost of Debenhams. I remember reading the press release. It was filled with corporate optimism, words like revitalization, modernization, and a new era. But buried beneath the PR language was the reality. Over 12,000 people had lost their jobs, 124 stores were gone, and yet the name was being recycled. For clicks, not customers. The irony was striking. The company that once failed to adapt online was now reborn as entirely online. Except, it wasn't the same. The new Debenhams had no dressing rooms, no perfume counters, no smiling attendants helping you find your size. No Saturday bustle. No Christmas magic. Just pixels, pages, and profit margins. Made me wonder, can a name survive when everything behind it is gone? Or is that just nostalgia being repackaged and resold? To Boohoo, it was a strategic move, a way to tap into brand recognition and expand their digital empire. To millions of former customers, it felt like an insult, a hollow imitation of something once real. Former employees began speaking out. One said, "It's not Debenhams anymore, it's just a logo wearing a mask." And in many ways that summed it up perfectly. The name lived on, but the spirit was gone. Boohoo's version of Debenhams became a symbol of how modern retail eats its past. One company's death becomes another's marketing opportunity. Legacy becomes leverage. And loyalty becomes irrelevant. But maybe, just maybe, this story isn't about retail at all. Maybe it's about something deeper. Something we're all part of without realizing it. Because as Debenhams disappeared, so did something we used to share, the sense of belonging that came with it. The buyout saved the brand but not the meaning. And in this new world of algorithms and automation, maybe that's the real loss. When I first started digging into what happened to Debenhams, I thought I was uncovering a story about business, about debt, greed, and bad management. But the deeper I went, the more I realized, this wasn't just about a company. It was about us. Because Debenhams wasn't just a store, it was a mirror. A reflection of how we live, what we value, and how fast we move on. When we stopped walking into stores and started scrolling on screens, we didn't just change our habits, we changed our hearts. I think about all the people who worked there, the ones who built their lives around those glass doors. The cashiers who remembered your name. The tailor who adjusted your suit by hand. The makeup artist who made someone feel beautiful on their wedding day. Where do those moments go when the lights go out? It's easy to blame technology or management or even the pandemic. But maybe part of this story is about something simpler, something we all did without noticing. We stopped showing up. We chose convenience over connection. Speed over service. Screens over stories. And now the high street, once the heart of our communities, is fading like an old photograph. But maybe remembering is a kind of resistance. Maybe by telling these stories, by asking what really happened, we keep something alive that spreadsheets and buyouts can't touch. Because Debenhams may be gone from the streets, but it still lives in our memories. In the scent of Christmas perfume, the touch of new clothes, the echo of escalators carrying us toward another ordinary, beautiful day. And maybe that's the lesson in all this. That no brand, no matter how old or powerful, can survive when it forgets the people who made it matter. The truth they don't want you to know isn't buried in a balance sheet or a business deal. It's in the silence that followed, when the doors closed for the last time, and an era quietly ended. I'm not sure what will replace Debenhams. Maybe nothing ever will. In memory of the British High Street. If you remember Debenhams, the smell of new clothes, the holiday lights, the feeling of finding something special, then you remember a piece of what made Britain's High Street feel alive. And maybe that's worth holding on to. Tell me in the comments. What's your best memory of Debenhams? Was it a first job, a Christmas shopping trip, or a simple Saturday you didn't realize would be your last one there? Because these stories matter, not just to history but to us. If you found this story powerful, help others see it too. Hit like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories behind the world we grew up in. The brands, the memories, and the moments that shaped who we are.